Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop on this. That ain't so heavy. Kind of like going to the bathroom. Fine winter, eventide. A treat especial, a new direction. Don't knock it till you try it. From former East Bloc Czechoslovakia. Some freedom seeds. Soon to be splayed out before us. 1,120 rounds of the finest Czechoslovak 762 by 39. This is the M mark. This is M43 is the type of ammo. 28 kilos of the stuff. But finest stuff came out of week 13 of 1981. 8 full years before the Velvet Revolution. Of course, when the Berlin Wall fell, and then later on Czechoslovakia shed the shackles of its one-party system. And this is Warsaw Pact surplus ammo, what will fit in the venerable and venerated SKS rifle, the Simonov semi-automatic rifle, as well as later iterations, including the AK-47, known the world over by child soldiers as the weapon of choice. And this has seen better days. Oh, she got a bit of a woof to her. Put up wet, left to drip dry on her own devices. A sloppy second, you might say. This is military surplus from, as I said, Czech Republic. This part of the world is fascinating because it has been the seat of conflict for millennia, thousands of years. Of course, you got the Austro-Hungarian Empire over here, the Germans, and you got up here, you got the Czech Republic, which was and Slovakia, which was Czechoslovakia, and then further on you get into these guys have seen some real shit. You get into Croatia, you get into Bosnia Herzegovina along the Adriatic, Italy, the boot over here, Serbia, Albany, Greece, the Turks, the Ottomans over here, so the Ruskies over here. The Berlin Wall, of course, fell in '89, and these bullets were sitting there the whole time just waiting to be needed. Lucky for us, they weren't needed, and lucky for the people there. The Velvet Revolution, of course, was a quiet and peaceful revolution. Of course, the Czechoslovakians, they would have had to go to a Russian university in order to get ahead at all and learn Russian. So a lot of them, there's some ill feelings towards Russia in that part of the world. I know some Romanians who would rather not talk about it. So we can see here that how this was manufactured was not with plywood, but with real wood, tongue and groove, like the house the lesbians built, not a stud in sight, and some banding, but the banding isn't just steel. It's been hot dip galvanized and then tacked on, and also some finger jointery here. We can see that it has gotten wet because the paint has sloughed off of the areas where the fiber of the wood has picked up moisture, expanded and then contracted. This is an interesting way to keep these two planks together. They've dovetailed this and slammed in a little style here, a little, what would you call that? Some dunnage, some slats. There's another word for it, which escapes me. I'm not much of one for working the wood myself. You got a steel hasp nailed on very simply, and it's starting to corrode. So this is going to be interesting to see if these rounds are viable. There's a construction detail you do not get kind of in the West. This hinge, very interesting. Normally what you would get is a pin, a through pin, and then have a shoulder on the head of her so that it couldn't come apart. Instead, what they've done, instead of having the pin longer and girthier, they've minimized on material very, very wily by adding just a touch, a little collar of sheet metal that once the pin is in place, they bend over. As you can plainly see by the corroded hot dip galvanizing, which has protected the tack there. You see there's no corrosion on the tack. There is corrosion on the hinges. There's no zinc on there clearly, but on these guys there is zinc and it's protected that tack. Now why hot dip galvanize this at all? Well, we can see by the corrosion, it's a sacrificial anode. It's sacrificial protection, and it protects the steel from corroding by itself corroding. The entirety of the zinc needs to corrode before it starts to go after the steel. And we can see lots of oxidized zinc here, white oxide powder, which is what you put on your nose if you don't want it to burn, so that the UV gets absorbed by it and changed into heat. I'm not entirely sure how one opens this. I'm guessing with the use of tools or opposable thumbs and these tabs, I should be able to get her. Maybe some linesman's pliers. Well, they sure didn't make it easy for the soldier. Maybe there's a special tool. But yeah, well, I guess they don't want the soldiers to eat them if they're too easy to access. Yeah, seen the U.S. military claymores have a warning on the back side of them. Well, first off, this side towards the enemy, for obvious reasons, but also do not eat, which is scary because that means that at some point someone tried to eat one. There we go, wrong tool for the job. Oh, and we've got some corrosion in there. This doesn't strike me as a particularly bohemian. Oh man, way to open this. Tougher than we give them credit for, I guess. I don't know. I think I'll stick to what works. I don't know. Hammering on an ammo box. Maybe not the best idea. Okay, nice to see here. There has been no ingress of water. However, they got, well, like a Christian Brotherhood church, or Christian Brotherhood hospital enema, high, hot, and hard. This thing, she got a little toasty on the cardboard. You see that? I don't know if I'd be too willing to get hot metal that close to 1120 rounds, but now this is fascinating. I apologize for my ebullience. This is tickling my tits right to bits. We see concreted here in the flesh the artifact of a command economy. Now, a command economy, of course, is top-down economy. Old Mao says we want a great leap forward. We want a blast furnace in every village. Then, God damn it, you're getting a blast furnace in every village. Let the people starve. Nobody give a fuck. What we want is to take a good ironmongery cookery and turn it into foamy slag, because that's what the cult of personality dictates. And we see they had lots of steel. Look at it. In the West, we would get that in a little thin film packaging and plastic, and it'd be just fine. But also, they had all kind of steel. Look at these hinges. Have a second look at these hinges. And we see we also had lots of labor. Somebody's job to go in there and clean that out so that it was recessed for the hinge. The hinge, instead of being just around that round part, it goes all the way. This is double layered. I'll moor you here. We're going on an away mission. Not to worry, I'll get you back to your regularly scheduled program momentarily. This is not a cheap hinge. Well, it's not a cheap toolbox, or rather roll cart and Mac tools. Here's the piano hinge. One layer of steel, and then around the pin, it's circularly bent, formed, and then dead-ended. You see, there's the joint right there. So that is reliant on the number of hinges in order to not fall apart. And you see that very typically. Well, door hinges, same thing. Now here we have the Soviet Bloc hinge. Now this is a disposable item, mind. Steel, metallurgical coal, manpower. We shit that out of the ground every day. Every day. See, two layers. Where am I? Two layers. And the hinge goes all the way around and then is sandwiched together. That is a Skookum hinge. A lot of material in there. Let's get some of these out now. The cardboard itself, a nice dye job on the outside, and then inside just au naturel. You can see by the tone, no recycled fibers in here at all, and also very little bleaching going on. You can see real big fibers in here. If you look at Western style cardboard, there's generally, for cheap stuff, there's generally going to be a lot of recycled fiber. So the cuts are nice, and well, the knives are kind of getting a little bit chewy. You see some fraying here and some tearing here rather than just shearing. But the bending, the bends are not even remotely crisp. So very likely made on some very, very old machines. Let me get that other cardboard before I forget. I had a gander around looking for some cheap cardboard. This crappy, what you call them, from the who's it's, what's it's, you know the place. And if we look in macro mode, too far. If we look in macro mode, we'll be able to see in there particles of different color fiber, meaning this is essentially recycled. Now, any recycled, they have to use new fiber, otherwise it just falls apart. This is cheap, but it's not particularly flimsy. Of course, this is packaging material, and we can see just artifacts of having recycled fiber in there. In the eastern, or rather behind the Iron Curtain, no recycling of fibers. Of course, why would you, when that shit grows on trees and you can burn it for heat? The more you look at this, the more you realize living on a different fucking planet. You notice, there's nothing on here telling you not to eat these. There's no warnings at all. Look at this. Big chunk of fiber. Look, that's a piece of tree carcass right there. Sick. The knives all worn right out. And in the West, we would see these glued. You wouldn't see staples on here. And look at the staples. Beautiful, bright and shiny, not electroplated zinc. There's some sort of black schmutz on here, which I don't know where it's from, likely from the manufacturer of the tacks themselves. You can see the spacer in here come off a special machine, what has a groove, and this would have been done on the wet paper itself as it's being rolled out. So it'd be rolled this way and then chopped. You can see two different artifacts. So measures taken to make sure those are nice tight bends, but nothing on the effect, nothing on the box itself. One supplied by the Interior Ministry of Boxes and one provided by the Exterior Ministry of Boxes. Now we're getting into the business end of the rapid onset lead injection device. These are colloquially known as the Gatteries. They do come on a clip. Purists, of course, tut and shake their heads when someone calls a magazine a clip, which of course it isn't a clip. But in this case, this rifle has an integral magazine. The SKS rifle has an integral magazine. It doesn't come out. For illustrative effect, we have a long-legged Russian beauty here, come out of the Tula factory in 1952. High-speed tape applied. We're clear on the feed path and nothing in the barrel there. There's the integral magazine, 10-round magazine, limited in Canaderp by this bad guy deterrent plug. Woo! Dodged a bullet, metaphorically speaking. Just about had to call this old Tony to fire up his time machine. Luckily, I had the, listen, if a tree falls in the forest, does it really make a sound? The answer, of course, is no. Now, traveling along Canada's Autobahn, it occurs to me that we could use a resurfacing. I got a beautiful day here on a beautiful range. Going to show you the strepper claps. Now that, I know you'd be tempted to, but you do not want to lick that pole. I'll spare you the need to make fun of my marksmanship. Seems gun guys are much like Instagram welders. Open sights on the far, that's about 100 yards. These are the corrosive rounds. So I've also got some non-corrosive ammo and some hunting rounds, which will be perfect because I think that's how it works, is you put the non-corrosive in after the fact and it cleans the barrel out, right? I've been getting MeTube tips from an oddball skinny fuck iDubbbz. Save the squirrels initiative from getting in my jeezeless eaves, pissing and shitting all over the place and eating my pipelines, gas leaks and so forth. I'm not allowed to shoot the fuckers, but I am allowed to eat them. That's pretty far away. Well, we just tried these hunting rounds, and 2462 is what we got. And now we're going to try these burn all. The colors of the Royal Russian Court previous to the revolution, red and green. Must be good. One thing I've gleaned from watching the YouTube tactical operators is that you need at least 11 pieces of flare on your firearm. Dragging around 90 pounds of gut, you got to look the part. As witness to the effectiveness of YouTube marksmanship training, I'm doing pretty good for a Canadian. I only missed but the one time. Lost track of a round there, just that easy. Like I say, it ain't the movies. You pick one of these things up and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to blow your fucking face clean off, partner. The beautiful thing about these is that they come on the stripper clip. The Chinese surplus rounds, corrosive ammo, extra MSG, I like that shit. It puts lead in your pencil. But they don't come on the stripper clips. The round itself is a lacquered raw steel case. It's lacquered to prevent corrosion, of course, with a corrosive primer, full metal jacket, the metal jacketing being, I would assume, steel. So in a lot of firing ranges, they don't care for you to bring these because they very likely also have a steel core, and they mess up the gongs, shoot right through the steel gongs. I'll stick the dick in the vise here, pointing directly at you. Things are scary. Oh yeah, safety squint ain't gonna do it for me. I'm telling you, these things are fucking scary. It could hurt a man. Come on. There's one situation where you don't want to get out the tappy tap tapperson. She coming. A little twist at the top there. Just like the Paris priest taught you. Oh, too much, too much. There we go. That's the bullet itself. See, whatever material that is inside. Now this is inert, we're okay. Now what we got in the case is a bunch of pellets of black powder. I know I called it black powder. It's hard to get away from that. It is not gunpowder, although it is a blackish powder. It's more kind of charcoaly, and there's a reason for that. Now this could be nitrocellulose. It is not nitrocellulose. It's something else. But it's far better than gunpowder because, one, you don't get the fog of war after firing your weapon. You don't get a big puff of smoke that obscures the battlefield and indicates your position to the enemy. It's also quite a bit more powerful. Black powder in comparison, well, the RE factor. So the RE is relative explosiveness factor of gunpowder is about 55% of that of trinitro TNT, trinitrotoluene. So this cellulose is about 110%, 1.1 RE factor compared to TNT. It's very powerful, very energetic. Of course, it doesn't really matter. It just depends on how much you have, but you can compact them. You know, you could use tannerite, which is ammonium nitrate and aluminum powder, very readily available. Well, it used to be. I think you can still buy ammonium nitrate even after the Oklahoma City bombing. You can't buy it here in Canada unless you have a farm license. you can't buy ammonium nitrate. I guess there's no legitimate need for a citizen to have access to ammonium nitrate. So, you know, if you get, you want a couple of tons ordered for your chicken ranch, your 10 hens need chicken ranch. Yeah, you can't do it. Speaking of which, welcome to the blacklist. Alexa, 2 tons of... No, I wouldn't do that to you. Okay, why is this black if this is ostensibly nitrocellulose? Why is it black? I'll tell you why. You'll see it's conductive. Now these are particles. It's not really powder because it's pelletized. Now, why would nitrocellulose be conductive? Well, it's because the manufacturer, enrobes it in graphite. Graphite is carbon and it's conductive. It prevents this from building up a static charge and popping off because you zap it on a dry winter day. I want to show you this is not explosive. It will conflagrate very rapidly. We got my bestest internet buddy here sent me a device. I don't know much about art, but I know what I like, and I know it is exceedingly difficult to tell a joke, let alone a joke visually. It's super easy to be, you know, make art and not be playful. But there's something about, you know, you look at something and it makes you laugh. That's not an easy thing to do. So yeah, I know, weird flex, but what's the point of having the cock and balls of a bull moose if you can't swing them around? I'll do a virtual hot bump here with hair sacks, probably very likely the closest I'll ever get. Read a documentary about child soldiers in Africa. It's good juju before they go into battle. 10, 12, 13 years old. Give them a snort of cocaine mixed with the black powder from their AK-47 bullets. These very 7.62 by 39s. Bullets. It's not a cartridge. Oh, fuck. The holy trinity of gun nerds is going to be on to me. Gun Jesus, his cock, 69, and Tal Fledermaus. Never mind that fellow at the ranch. Ain't no pedant like a gun nerd. I'll tell you what. Contact. Anytime now. Speaking of hairy nuts of the forgotten firearms variety, it always struck me as so bloody tedious to constantly be polishing your tool, constantly be cleaning the fouling up, especially when you got smokeless powder. If it's smokeless, why the fuck is the barrel fouling? Why are you getting shit in there? Of course, you get some metal pickup and so forth, but you also get that black soot. What is that black soot? It's the graphite left behind, which normally gets ejected, but it's, yeah, that's carbon, unsublimated carbon. Having a look at the exploded cartridge, we see the Berdan primer, which has Armstrong mixer. A little Freudian slap of the tongue there. Armstrong mixer, of course, is another name for when you're 3 guys to a pickup truck and you don't have the foreskin to call shotgun. You get stuck in the skiing seat, the middle seat, which of course, it has its pros and cons, because if you call shotgun, it is your obligation to reach over, honk the horn, and duck down anytime you go past a purty lady. There's nothing funnier than 2 men sitting side by each alone in a pickup truck. Armstrong mixture, which is a potassium or chloride, it's a permanganate, and so it goes. The bombing of Dresden. Phosphorus. Phosphorus, they add phosphorus to potassium perchlorate to sensitize it to shocks and to friction. And when the firing pin, well, let's go through the operation here. So essentially, you have a spring-loaded firing pin that is retained by the trigger. Your finger puts the impetus into the trigger to delatch the firing pin. Firing pin shoots forward, contacts this Bourdon primer. The Bourdon primer has an anvil internal and 2 ports. It conflagrates that Armstrong mixture, which causes the slightly less flammable black powdery crap to also ignite, and it ignites quite rapidly, and it is contained within a pressure vessel. That is the breech and the firing chamber, or the what do you call that, the barrel. That mixture in there changes very quickly from a solid to a gas, increases the pressure up to 60, 70,000 psi. 60,000 psi bearing on the back of this projectile means that it is subject to an extreme amount of force, causing it to accelerate very rapidly along the barrel. As it's traveling along the barrel itself has integral rifles, a rifle, pew-pew, that causes the projectile to spin. And that spin, as it exits the barrel, creates gyroscopic stability, so it's not wobbling around. That gyroscopic stability very much increases the accuracy because it's not subject to the whims and vagaries of the fluid which it is moving through, until it contacts something more substantial, such as meat. Different military round compared to a civilian round, say for hunting, is that hunters have full lead or potentially some sort of polymer tipped. And the reason they do that is so that it impacts and then mushrooms out. So all the energy is imparted in a short distance. So the animal, what you are trying to kill, well, it drowns in its own blood very rapidly, which is completely monstrous, but no less monstrous, or slightly less monstrous, I would say, than raising an animal, feeding it for the sole purpose of slaying it, cutting it up into bits and wrapping it in plastic. We are all monsters. I mean, the only ethical solution really is to be a vegetarian, but then, oh God, every order with your friends at a restaurant is a 5-minute negotiation punctuated with the utterance, well, I guess I'll just have the fish. Who's the real monster? In this military round, we have a steel slug. It's actually steel jacketed, electroplated copper. That's to prevent fouling in the barrel, or to minimize the fouling in the barrel and protect it, add some lubricity as well. And then there's also a lead jacket. And what happens is that the projectile flies straight and through to its mark. And once it hits its mark, the jacket peels off. And then you have this little steel slug. It's more of a rod, and it's got a taper on it. It's not stable. What ends up happening is, as it enters your body, it makes an ungodly, holy terror of a hole because it starts to tumble. Yeah, see, there's the steel jacketing. Here is the lead, minimizing on the cost of the round itself. And then the steel slug, what goes through just about anything, is there. You can see how that would be it would be unstable when it's going through various densities of material. I got so enraptured with the proper etiquette of pickup truck passengery that we nearly forgot talking about this primer. Now, this is corrosive round. The thing is, it's not the main charge. It's not the main propellant that is corrosive. It's not the bullet that's corrosive. It's just the primer that is corrosive. Because it's potassium or sodium permanganate, what ends up happening is it creates salt in its byproducts. After it's exhausted, there is some residual salts. Now, there might be but 20 milligrams of that mixture in here, but you shoot 10,000 rounds, well, 1,000 rounds or so in a day at the range, and you have quite a bit of salt in your barrel, and that is the corrosive part. It's just the primer that's corrosive. And it's the same stuff what's in cap guns, only in a cap gun you might get 10 milligrams of the stuff, but in these you get, say, 20. That's the only reason it's corrosive, is because there's salt in the byproducts, and of course salt and humidity mix with iron to create rust. However, if you take away one of those, if you take away the humidity, you're not going to get any rust. Just for tits and pickles, and to wrap up, we're going to check the radioactivity of these military surplus rounds. Make sure there's no depleted uranium, or they ain't sending us their e-waste or what have you. Make sure that if one of these enters your body, you die of rapid onset lead poisoning like you're supposed to, and not of the cancer. Yeah, we're happy. Oh, fuck. That's alarming. Too bad it won't go in a pew-pew. Thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vice.